Okay.
We have everybody here.
Yes, sorry again for the delay. Take it away for us.
Oh, well, Casey, except I don't have that little printed statement. I guess I am not ready regarding the Kansas Open Meeting.
That's all right. I will pull it up on the agenda. Kurt.
That is funny, but that is funny. Oh, you have to stall for like 10 seconds because I am not on YouTube. I will be in just a second.
Okay, so Kurt is reporting we need to get onto YouTube, so he's going to do that.
And television would be good. Okay, we're on TV, and now we're on YouTube. We really are. And Casey, you're on TV.
Excellent. We are live and on TV. Okay. So Scott, we don't have our little prepared statement to read.
I apologize. I could
No worries.
wing it if you want me to.
You what?
I could wing it. I think I remember it.
Let's wing it.
My name is Scott Wagner. I'm a legal analyst in the City Attorney's Office. Welcome to the Human Relations Commission meeting. Tonight, we have various members of city staff as well as members of the Human Relations Commission present on the meeting. Anytime you need to speak, please unmute yourself and state your name for other members of the commission and the public to listen to. This meeting is being streamed over the city's YouTube channel. When a motion is made, our chair will record the votes. When we need to take a vote, the chair will ask you to state your name and your vote for that particular tally, and the chair will report the ayes and nays on that particular vote. If any members of the public are present, we have public comment time allotted at the end of the meeting for public comment. Our regular time limits will apply. I believe that concludes our comments for the Open Meetings Act tonight.
All right, thank you, Scott. This is Commissioner Amber Sellers, chair for tonight's meeting, and I will call it to order at 5:51 p.m. We'll start with a roll call. If you could please state aye when your name is called. Commissioner Haswood.
Aye.
Commissioner Falls.
Aye.
Commissioner Bluxham.
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett.
Aye.
Commissioner Sheldon Sherman.
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens.
Aye.
All right. Scott, I have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 commissioners present for quorum this evening. All right.
That's what I have. Correct.
Okay. Commissioners, we'll move on to our agenda at this time under bullet point A, approval of minutes. If you could take a moment to review the minutes from our December meeting. And if there are no objections, then I would like to receive a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
This is Commissioner Barnett speaking. I've taken time to review the minutes and I move that we approve the minutes of the December 14th meeting, 2020.
Okay. Do I have a second?
This is Commissioner Stevens. I second the motion to approve.
All right. The motion has been properly moved and seconded. Roll call vote. Commissioner Haswood.
Here.
Is that an aye?
Aye. Commissioner Haswood.
Okay. Commissioner Falls.
Aye.
Commissioner Bluxham.
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett.
Aye.
Commissioner Sheldon Sherman. That's going to be a tongue tie all night.
I abstain since I was not at the December meeting.
Thank you. Commissioner Stevens.
Aye.
And Commissioner Sellers is an aye. So the motion carries with 6 votes for aye and 1 abstention. Okay, moving on to agenda items. So first, welcome to 2021 commissioners. Welcome back. We have some new faces and we'll take care of that here with our first bullet item, but I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight and knowing that this is a special meeting for us to look at the strategic plan and to get ourselves acclimated with some of the work that the city's been doing, as well as hear from our new diversity and equity and inclusion manager or director. So I know you're not just here to see my pretty face, so we'll go ahead and get started with commissioner member introductions. And so I will get us going. And if you guys didn't notice on the agenda, we do, I think we're trying to keep the time here. So I have asked Commissioner Barnett to serve as our Sergeant at Arms to ensure that we stay on time as much as possible. I know that we have a very rich agenda and there's a possibility that we may not be able to get through everything, but I do want to be respectful of everyone's time and to ensure that we can get through things at least in some efficient way. So without further ado, good evening. My name is Amber Sellers. I'm your chair for the Human Relations Commission. I am a Kansas native. I am a first generation Kansan, so woohoo. But born and raised in Wichita. I moved to Lawrence a little over a year ago, so in December of 2019. Although this is my second go around living here in Lawrence, I was here as a student and decided to stay afterwards. So I'm vowed to come back to Lawrence because I enjoyed just the environment, the people, and the community so much. So I work for the Kansas Department of Health and Environment, specifically in the Bureau of Family Health and Research and Policy. And that is me. I'm going to pass it on to, I'll just do everyone so we're not worried about which square we're going to do and whatnot. So Commissioner Falls, if you can introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Joseph Falls, I'm an attorney and lifelong Kansan as well. Grew up mostly in Ottawa, but I've been living here in Lawrence for the past 10 years now.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Falls. Commissioner Barnett.
Commissioner Barnett, I was born and raised in Kansas, and I scooted off to college in Southwest Missouri, came back for law school at KU, and I have my own law practice here in Lawrence, focusing primarily on animal law and municipal law. And I have 2 kids and a bunch of dogs.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Barnett. Commissioner Bloxham.
Hi, I'm Commissioner Sarah Bloxham. I am a lifelong Douglas County resident, attended Baldwin City Schools, moved to Lawrence in 1992 and haven't left. I joined the commission a little over 6 years ago when I was contracting for DCF, working out of the Lawrence Workforce Center. I've since become employed with Topeka Public Schools as a school social worker. I have 4 children and grateful to be here. Welcome, new members.
Thank you, Commissioner Bloxham. Commissioner Stevens.
My name is Caleb Stevens. I'm a lifelong Kansas resident, Lawrence resident, except for undergrad when I went to Bethel College in North Newton, Kansas. And then I came back here for my master's, and I'm finishing up my PhD, and I'm also a dual licensed mental health therapist.
All right. And as I mentioned, we do have 2 fairly new, one new as of this evening, commissioners, and that is Commissioner Haswood and Commissioner Sheldon Sherman. Before I have you 2 introduce yourselves, I'll have Scott, Casey, Elizabeth, and then Dr. Ferris introduce themselves, and then I'll have Commissioner Haswood and Commissioner Sheldon Sherman introduce yourselves. So, Scott.
My name is Scott Wagner. I'm an analyst in the city attorney's office. I too am a lifelong Kansan, and I think Chair Sellers and I discovered we lived in the same neighborhood in Wichita for a time period. I moved to Lawrence in 1990 for graduate work and never left until a few years ago. I moved in barely into Johnson County, and I'm now a DeSoto resident. I've been with the city of Lawrence now coming on 21 years in March. And I too have 4 kiddos who keep me very busy these days, as well as everything else. So I'm been working with the Human Relations Commission, I think going on 11 or 12 years now, and I'm happy to be here this evening. Thank you.
Casey?
Hi, everyone. I'm Casey Toomey. I am one of the assistant city managers here for the city. I've been in that position since 2014, but I've been with the city. I just actually celebrated my 17th anniversary on New Year's Eve. So been here for a while. Moved to Lawrence in 1994. I moved away briefly, but came back in, I guess 2003, and have been here since. So have been working as the liaison to the Human Relations Commission since I think June or July, in anticipation of our new Director of Equity and Inclusion arriving and taking over that role. And he will be introducing himself to you here shortly. So nice to get an opportunity to work with all of you.
Elizabeth? Yeah, you get to introduce yourself too.
My name is Elizabeth Hafoka. I'm the supervising city prosecutor and also human relations investigator. I am pretty much a lifelong Kansan, grew up in Wichita and Heston, Kansas, and Kansas City, Kansas. I attended undergraduate at Bethel College, like Caleb Stevens, and then moved here to Lawrence to go to KU Law School. I also have 4 children, which seems to be a good number among the group. And I've been with the city since 2011. Before that, I was an assistant district attorney in Johnson County, and I've focused on criminal prosecution, particularly DUI prosecution.
Dr. Mohammed, sorry.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I am Faris Mohammed. I'm the Director of Equity and Inclusion for the City of Lawrence, and I've been in this role now for, it looks like, 2 months and 2 days. I am born and raised in the city of Detroit, and I've spent majority of my life in the Midwest, so I'm happy to be back here in the Midwest and happy to serve as one of these staff liaisons to this commission. So thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Mohammed. Commissioner Haswood.
Hello, yet a Christina has wedding and she told Nishlan, the Bethlehem Bashash eat Nash Eshatabahan, Dashish Keki Aniashnella. As for my fellow Navajos and Dene, my indigenous peoples, my name is Christina Haswood. I'm born and raised here in Lawrence, Kansas. I went to Prairie Park, South Junior High, Billy Mills Middle School, Lawrence High School, graduated in 2012. Went off to my higher education, just finished my master's in public health at the University of Kansas Medical Center. Came back to help my community. I currently work as at the State House as a House of Representative for District 10, as well at the KU COVID Call Center.
Thank you, Commissioner Haswood. And rounding us out, our newest commissioner, Commissioner Sheldon Sherman.
Hi, everyone. I grew up here in Lawrence, and I went to Lawrence Free State instead of Lawrence High School, like Commissioner Haswood, and went to KU for undergrad, moved to North Carolina where I was a high school teacher, and then I moved to California where I went to Stanford for law school. Lived all over the place and just recently moved back to Lawrence. I work for a federal judge in Kansas City, and I have only 2 children, 2 and 4, so I'm very impressed with all of you who have 4. And I'm looking forward to working with everyone.
All right. Did I miss anyone? All right, seeing none. Again, welcome everyone. And I know we are set to have another commissioner join us here. And I know we lost Commissioner Dahl before the end of the year. So I just want to take some time to recognize Commissioner Dahl for her service as a commissioner, and just really excited that we're continuing to move and go along, and that we now have some additional commissioners joining us to kind of round out the richness and robustness of our commission. So Welcome, welcome. All right, next on our agenda, item number 2, receiving our monthly case report from Elizabeth Fafolka. Elizabeth, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Commissioner Sellers. For those of you that are new, I will just explain that I give a case update at every meeting, and that's to inform the commission of current open discrimination cases that we are investigating, and also cases that have been closed since the previous meeting, if there are any, as well as information on inquiries that the Human Relations Office received, but were determined not to be grounds for filing a discrimination complaint. So since currently we have one housing discrimination case, and the basis for that complaint is disability. We are continuing that investigation and starting the process of conciliation as well. There were 0 cases closed since the December 14, 2020 meeting. And we had several calls since the last meeting that were determined not to be discrimination related. Several calls saying our Amazon account has been hacked. We don't have an Amazon account. We had a caller report that she was having an issue with her landlord because her neighbor's dryer vent was blowing into her unit. She was referred to housing and credit counseling. Caller reported that sewer water was backing up into her house. The landlord was not compensating for damages, also was referred to housing and credit counseling. A caller reached out to us who had some concerns about agencies, particularly FAP agencies as we are, that have agreements with HUD to do discrimination investigations, that are accepting HUD funding for that, but not using the money to assist homeless persons. And we explained what our role is as far as investigating discrimination complaints, and tried to give that caller information that sort of alleviated some of his concerns. We had another caller check on a job application that they had put in with the city, referred them to Human Resources. One caller reported that she had city utility workers on her property without prior notice, but then she hung up before we were able to get that resolved. One caller asked if our office covered issues in Leavenworth County, and we only have jurisdiction for discrimination complaints here in the city of Lawrence, so we referred that person to the federal agency HUD. We had a caller report an issue with their landlord about the water bill not being split between users. They were referred to housing and credit counseling. One caller asked if a lease termination letter was valid without a signature. We also referred them to housing and credit counseling. Another caller reported that the apartment complex where they were living had not salted the parking lot, referred them to housing and credit counseling, and then there was someone that simply was not there. So that is the case update. Are there any questions?
This is Commissioner Bloxham. Thank you for that update, Elizabeth. I do have a quick question in regard to the case that we have open right now. Can you tell, I have 2 questions about that case. First of all, can you tell me how that case was referred into investigation? Meaning, was it a caller that called on the line to complain, or was that call, or was that complaint referred by HUD? Am I making sense?
Yes, that complaint was not referred by HUD, although I do not remember if it was an online intake form that was submitted or a phone call that I took. So I would have to look at that and get back to you if you want that specific information. But
no, I just wondered if it was a referral or not.
No, this complainant reached out to our office directly, had found our information, I believe, from the internet, Googling fair housing and looking at some of the issues that she had concerns about and she wanted to file the complaint about.
Okay. My second question was that the one that was opened for investigation in November?
Yeah, the answer to that is yes. This particular complaint has been somewhat delayed. The representative for the respondent is out of state and has been difficult to get a hold of and communicate with. So we are dealing with those challenges, working on scheduling interviews and also conciliation. So I think it will start moving quicker, more quickly since the holidays are over. But the reason that it's been taking sort of more time than we would like is because of the respondent's representative and because they're represented by an attorney, and I'm also an attorney. I'm kind of stuck with trying to communicate with that person, and I'm not allowed to sort of go around that, if that makes sense.
Understood. So if we're looking back from October, and those are just the ones that I pulled since we started doing this in writing, we've closed 2 cases. This is just from what I was reviewing. We closed 2 cases. One was closed for probable cause and one was a conciliation. And we've only opened 2 new cases or 3. And I guess I'm wondering if that's not, are we seeing a downtick in our reports, or is that normal? I mean, you've been doing this for a long time. So I'm asking you, like, is it normal that we don't have that many investigations or closing of cases? Because really let's just say the last quarter, we've really investigated 2 or 3. Is that normal?
I'm not sure what you mean by normal, but I will say that in the past 9 years that I've been here, we have had years where there have been more cases than we've had recently, I would say. We haven't consistently had a high number of cases and then all of a sudden that's dropped off. So I'm not sure the reason for it. I would say that we don't have very many cases right now. When HUD did their review of our processes and of our compliance agreement, they did suggest that we, do take some action to increase our caseload numbers. But we were found to be in compliance, and we are investigating cases, every year.
Thank you. I appreciate you and your hard work. Thank you for answering those questions for me.
Welcome.
This is Commissioner Barnett. I have a quick follow-up. I remember, I don't think I was present for the October meeting, but we got their report, Beth, that you're referring to, and we were compliant, but didn't they give us some goals to meet or some kind of standards or something? I'm just wondering, was there a deadline or anything that we needed to do as a commission to meet all of those goals that HUD set out for us? Is there something we should be doing?
It's been a while since I've reviewed that particular report, so I don't remember specifically what it said. I know there were some recommendations for us. And as far as caseload numbers, there are recommendations based on the population size of the city that HUD believes are the performance standards that they would like to see. So I know that was one thing that they pointed out. And as far as increasing sort of outreach to the community or information to the community, I thought we talked about that at one of the prior meetings. That was kind of a goal that we had set, and we had come up with some ideas for how we were going to get more information out there so that people would know that we exist and know where to come with their concerns. But I don't remember specifically what it said. I can look at that and get back to you.
I actually have it. Sorry, I just pulled it up since I was looking around. So it says that it revealed that the agency processed the complaints they received consistent with the criteria for processing. However, the agency did not process the required number of cases and did not make any determinations of reasonable cause. a review of the agency's performance metrics for the last 5 years revealed these issues are continuing. Is this language just really strong, and or is this like a serious issue we need to work on as a commission? It sounds strong to me as I'm reading it, but I don't know how serious of an issue it is since they found us to be compliant.
In my experience being with the Human Relations Office since 2011, I think this has been sort of an ongoing issue, the case numbers being low. And the fact that HUD found us to be in compliance with the agreement, I don't think that it's a cause for alarm. I think that as as a city and as the Human Relations Commission, we should continue to look at ways that we can spread awareness to the community and really get our purpose out there so people know where to come to file complaints. But I don't think that the language that HUD wrote in the agreement or the performance assessment is cause for alarm.
Okay. Sorry, it just also caught my eye now that I'm looking at it, and we can reserve this. We are now, I think, 11 minutes over time, but it says corrective actions within 45 days. The Lawrence Human Relations Commission was supposed to submit a plan on what steps it will take to increase fair housing complaint filings and investigations. And then the outreach that we talked about, and then improving the intake process, which we talked about for the website. But then it says within the next 90 days, HUD will contact the agency to schedule training. And the agency has not issued a determination of reasonable cause since fiscal year 2016. The absence may have occurred for various reasons, et cetera. So I feel like, are we to expect a training from HUD?
HUD actually had a recent training, and the other investigator in our office, Ms. Summers, she attended that training by Zoom. That was, I believe, a 4-day training, and it talked about procedures for investigating complaints, for doing intake interviews. There wasn't training for increasing case numbers, I don't believe. And Scott Wagner, you can help me out with this, but I think we met, and as a staff, we talked about suggestions that we could make to HUD and things that we could do to, let HUD know that we're working to get our message out there and increase our numbers. And I believe that was a recent meeting that we had prior to the end of the year.
Elizabeth, this is Commissioner Sellers. We did have that. I know there was one meeting that Commissioner Burnett was not able to attend, but it was when we received the report, and then we had several commissioners that wanted some follow-up as far as what action steps were going to look like with that. And we did review that document, and where Scott presented the recommendations for measures that we could take in order to improve those spots that were recommended by HUD. And as a commission, we did review them. It may be beneficial moving forward, which it has a lot to do with the work that we're going to do this evening. Scott, if we could possibly get that report, or at least have, I want to say it was our November meeting. Was it the November meeting? To look back at our notes to see what all we agreed upon as at least some of the things that HUD recommended. Now, not to say that it is an exhaustive list, and it's something that I think it's just the minimum that we could do. And I think the work that we'll do this evening could possibly open up some opportunities for us to do more and to at least find ways to be more visual and vocal and accountable to the community. So, but it might behoove the commissioners to go back and look at the meeting packet from November and look at exactly what was discussed and what we agreed upon.
This is Commissioner Bloxham. I was at every meeting. I haven't missed any meetings. I remember receiving this report.
Mm-hmm.
but I don't remember ever, and I remember talking about things that we would do, but I don't ever remember reviewing a document that says exactly like that it was written off by Human Relations Commission to submit a plan. I've never seen that plan. Maybe I'm overlooking it, but I don't remember it was, I mean, I'm just speaking for myself.
Right.
I don't remember, this is kind of the hitch for me.
Yes, and this is Commissioner Sellers. And I do remember us having that discussion, and it was a report that Scott presented. That was a very heavy meeting. I don't think that's neither being said as an excuse for anyone or to have any culpability of any sort. But I do distinctly remember us going over that document. So it just may behoove us. Like I said, it's something that we submitted to HUD in regards to the report. I don't feel like, and I don't want to misspeak, but I don't feel like it's something that is the end all be all. And definitely this is one piece in a bigger system that we need to look at as a commission, about what we do and how that communication comes forth from the city and just what this report means and how involved commissioners need to be in this process moving forward. So.
Chair Sellers, this is Casey Toomey, Assistant City Manager. We do have the capability to pull that report back up from our November meeting. It was our third agenda item. Consider approving the Human Relations Outreach Plan for 2021 with enhancements. So as we continue our conversations about Chapter 10, about the strategic plan, about goals for next year, I think a suggestion might be to look at that document at that point. It does have the plan in there month by month and calls out some specific things that we committed as a city to doing. So that might be an avenue to have that discussion.
And this is Commissioner Sellers. Thank you, Casey. I did have that as in my notes when we got down to the strategic plan for us to revisit that piece, because I want to state that there were some specific activities that were listed in that enhancement where several commissioners may have agreed to support those activities as far as the planning piece. So I think for the sake of what we're doing tonight and reimagining the work that we could do, that'll be a good document for us to go back to.
Thank you for that. This is Commissioner Bloxham again, going back to the original report from HUD. I do remember the outreach committee, the outreach items. That's not necessarily what I think really struck me going back to this report is the fact that we haven't issued a determination of reasonable cause since fiscal year of 2016. So, and again, that's when we started having our conversation about not having oversight on items that have been brought for investigation. So now it's jarred my memory back to that. And so going forward on our agenda tonight, I'd really like to discuss that.
Right, and that's what we have. This is Commissioner Sellers. We have that built in. I think the way we were able to create the agenda today is that it allows us to look at our roles and responsibilities under Chapter 10, as well as the broader piece of how do we take that and combine it with the strategic plan and align it with the commitments and outcomes. So I think we have a great opportunity to speak on this, especially several points that you brought up, Commissioner Bloxham, as far as the roles and responsibilities of the commission. So I think you're leading us into that discussion, but I want to make sure that we close out this agenda point first before we get to that. But I want you to stay hot and passionate about that. So as far as the report that Ms. Afoka has brought to us, are there any other questions in regards to the report? Wonderful. So we're going to move on to agenda item number 3, discussion of roles of the commission. So I know in this piece, I know that Scott sent out an email for us to do a little bit of homework prior to tonight's meeting. You should have received 2 documents, one being the strategic plan, as well as one being Chapter 10, the Chapter 10 ordinance that outlines the roles and responsibilities of the commission, as well as that of the Human Relations Director. Scott, I know we had talked about doing a little introduction before we get into this. Did you want to go ahead and speak on that? I know one of the pieces that I wanted to talk about was some of the context as to Chapter 10 and the Human Relations Commission, the history of it and whatnot, that I felt like was very pertinent to how we've come to be today, and maybe help us guide our discussions as far as some of the concerns that we've had as commissioners in our roles and duties as serving in this capacity.
My name is Scott Wagner. I'm an analyst for the City Attorney's Office. And yes, I'd be happy to speak briefly about the long and really storied background of the Lawrence Human Relations Commission, and I'll keep it brief. I think as we pointed out in that November outreach plan, this year, 2021, does mark the 60th year of the founding of the Lawrence Human Relations Commission. It was founded in February of 1961. So that's something that we plan to celebrate this year. The commission was really, as far as my knowledge and research on the history of the commission, really the first civil rights entity that was created by the city of Lawrence. And its very first members were a very distinguished panel of Lawrencians. It included civil rights activists in the community, former mayors, attorneys, and it was a pretty distinguished group. And I think that tradition continues today, but it certainly continued in the early years of the commission. When you go back and look at the membership, in fact, in the late 1960s, it even included the coach at the time of the KU basketball program, and Fred Six, who later would become a Supreme Court justice on the Kansas Supreme Court. One of the first issues that the commission really tackled in the early to mid 1960s was the fair housing issue. And we talked about that as a commission a few years ago. I think that was in 2017. We celebrated the 50th anniversary of the passage of the first Lawrence Fair Housing Law. And it was really the work of the Human Relations Commission that brought that movement forward. There had been groups in Lawrence looking at the issue of fair housing in our community and how Lawrence didn't have those protections. And so Lawrence's fair housing law actually predated the passage of the federal civil rights fair housing law that passed in the spring of 1968. So this commission has a long background of fighting for civil rights in Lawrence. In the early 1970s, the commission looked at some of the racial struggles that were happening in Lawrence, and actually after some of the protests that occurred in the spring of 1970 and into the summer of 1970 at Lawrence High, the commission studied the racial problems and issued, again, reports and recommendations to the governing body on that topic. The result of those reports was the creation of Lawrence's first Human Relations Division in 1972, and the first full-time director of human relations. And that position continued until 2007, when kind of the functions of the Human Relations Department were merged with the City Attorney's Office. Our Chapter 10 of the code is pretty comprehensive, given the nature of the founding of this commission and the scope of the work that it was originally tasked to do. So hopefully when you guys reviewed Chapter 10 of the code, you saw some of those calls to action and the potential work that this commission can address in the community. And those code provisions are unchanged to this day. Most of the code has not changed from its original creation, except for the expansion of the human relations protections in Lawrence. Sexual orientation was added as a protection in the 1990s in Lawrence. Gender identity was added in 2000, I believe, 10. It was while I was part of the commission as well. So those two protections are part of the Human Relations Code in Lawrence as well. So, the commission has a long and proud history of promoting these civil rights in Lawrence. Hope that gives you a little bit of background as to the work you guys are doing.
It does. Thank you, Scott. So I wanted Scott to give that little bit of historical context for us to see not necessarily the evolution of the commission, but to possibly serve as a starting point for us to discuss, knowing that context of where this commission has come from and how it has, I don't want to say evolved or reshaped itself as a living form of advisory or governance here in the city, in hopes for us to have a discussion about what are some of the things that we have seen in ordinance that we feel like knowing that history and actually knowing just the research of whether you've reviewed other commissions within the state or in neighboring states, and looking at their roles and responsibilities, and in order for us to have a dialogue about what are some things that we feel like are missing from those responsibilities that we feel like we should have as commissioners, addressing these specific points. Before we get into that, I wanted to ask Dr. Muhammad just if you wanted to share some words about some of the work you've done in this capacity and work that you've done, whether in Detroit or in Illinois, and how you see the role of the commission and things of that, just to get your perspective on it.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson Sellers. I'm Faris Muhammad, Director of Equity and Inclusion for the City of Lawrence. And I do have some experience with the similar types of commission as the Human Relations Commissions and other places been referred to as the Fair Housing Commission or Fair Employment Commission, and oftentimes in overseeing the Equal Opportunity Office, which kind of centers on investigating various types of complaints throughout cities as relates to wrongful termination of employment, housing discrimination, and public accommodation related matters, similar to what the Chapter 10 ordinance kind of provides this governing body with some of the authority to be able to do. And so, yeah, I'm very familiar with a lot of those kinds of things, and I'm more than happy to, as we kind of treat this as a retreat and kind of figure out some of the roles and responsibilities of this commission and some of the commissioners, I'm more than happy to contribute and try to figure out ways to help provide some insight as to some of the direction that this commission can do to help be more innovative and thinking and help kind of contribute to not just the city as an organization, but the city as a community to be more equitable throughout the city as an overall, to make sure that forms of discrimination are not happening and the outreach that can happen from this committee can be even broader to be more impactful. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Muhammad. So in order to get the discussion going, I wanted to come back to Commissioner Bluxham, because I know as one of the new-ish, because I find out very quickly that being a new person on a commission as such, that wears off pretty quickly. So while I'm one of the newer members to the commission, I now find myself somewhere kind of in the middle of this timeline as far as some of our seasoned commissioners and our new commissioners here. But I wanted to go back in order to get the dialogue going on this, is that when I came into the commission, I noticed that several of our commissioners had shared concerns with some of the evolution of how some of the roles and responsibilities around some of the hearings and the decisions on cases that are made, and how that policy, or at least that process, has evolved since without prior knowledge. And so so I kind of wanted us to use that as a starting point to maybe get some of the discussion going as what we see as our role as commissioners, or what we feel like our role should be as commissioners. And so I did look at a couple of cities commissions, and what it seems like is where the commissioners at one point had a more inclusive involvement in reviewing or at least hearing some of the cases that came that were decided upon, and they were part of that initial process, and that through guidance of our city attorney and what that looks like, it seems like the commissioners have now been, we're now part of a, I guess you would say a quasi judicial hearing, where it's more like we're not involved on the front end of discussions, but more on the back end of that. And so wanted to at least hear from everyone as far as looking at this piece, how cases are presented, how information is shared with us. Where do we see that going, or where do we hope to be in that initial process and where we are now? And what should that involvement look like? So for those commissioners who have been with us for several years now, can you share a little bit of context for our newer commissioners? Some of the changes that you've seen in regards to case reporting and at least involvement of commissioners in that capacity.
This is Commissioner Barnett. I think what you're referring to is those investigative reports where a few months ago we realized that the commission was not getting involved in the case review process. And we were told that it was for myriad reasons, one being lagging response time. And I honestly can't remember on behalf of commissioners, and I honestly can't remember the rest, but when I joined the commission several years ago, the commissioners were involved in case review. And so I think that's maybe where we became that quasi-judicial body for case review. And then it went on to push to the director, which I just have a really quick question. So is Dr. Muhammad the Human Relations Director for purposes of Chapter 10, or is it still Ms. Wheeler?
This is Assistant City Manager Casey Toomey. Sorry for the feedback. The answer is, at this point, City Attorney Tony Wheeler is still the director for purposes of Chapter 10. I think that with Dr. Muhammad coming on board, that is a conversation that that could be had. And I've had preliminary conversations with our city attorney, with Dr. Muhammad and our city manager to talk about that. I think that is part of this conversation as well. So trying to determine everyone's roles is what we're after. And the work that you all do here tonight, I think, is one branch. The other is determining on the staff side how we best can carry out the responsibilities of Chapter 10 and support each other are part of that conversation too.
This is Commissioner Barnett. Thank you so much. I just, when we were, Scott sent us Chapter 10 last week, and I got to reading over it, and I just was wondering, what our roles were and what staff roles were too. So I appreciate the honesty there. I would love to get back to what I feel was the original intent of Chapter 10, which is to have a body of community members reviewing or as kind of checks and balances on these complaints that come in. That's what I understood my role when I joined the Human Relations Commission would be. I didn't know that it would be a lot of attending, festivals and determining outreach. And I think that with the leadership of Chair Sellers, that we're able to kind of, like she said, reimagine what our role is. I would kind of like to get back to what we were doing back in the day. And so I don't have a formal proposal, just putting that out there as a discussion point. And that's all I have to say on like the historical context and role as far as recent history.
Thank you, Commissioner Barnett. This is Commissioner Sellers. To add to that as well, I know there was one particular part when I came on as a commissioner. Someone who deals in research and policy, that was something that in reading chapter 10, I felt like there was an opportunity for us to expand on that and to at least look at opportunities to look at the history of reporting and reports to figure out where are we missing spaces and places for us to engage and really challenge the city in addressing concerns and not just seeing it, not to say as a one-off, but to say that we have something to check a box that we have it, but to do more, to dig deep and do that deeper dive as it, into why do we have the cases we have, and is there a possibility that we're missing something, or are we creating a gap? So I can't speak for everyone on the commission, but I would love to figure out how we can, to be more emboldened and charged with looking at some of the research that's out there and having opportunities to engage with similar communities as ours on how they, what are some of the approaches that they're taking to address areas for opportunities for education and outreach. Because I know that the concerns we have in, are we getting the cases? Do people know who we are and where we are? And we talked about that early on when I came on board, as far as just the functionality and the ease of use of the website, and knowing that internet can be a barrier for some. So what are some other ways we can to utilize ourselves? So I think for me is having that conversation as far as what, if I'm an extension of the human relations director or a representation of the city in regards to human relations. In my own, I feel like I'm competent, but I don't know if I have all the resources and tools to speak on behalf of the city, and what is the city doing, or what opportunities are available to us to seek resources to have, so that we can not only just educate our commissioners, but also educate the community on knowing, what protective rights look like. And I know that was one of the questions we had for Elizabeth, and I think we had it for someone else. Like, what was the hot topics? Like, what are some things that you all are hearing in your expert networks that we need to be aware of? COVID is a great example of how we look at, the discrimination and potential discrimination when it comes to moratoriums on rent and things of that nature. Is there something we should be doing, and to ensure that, knowing that if that is something I am tasked with, that I know that it is an expectation of me as a commissioner to be aware of being a part of that work and ensuring that the city is doing what they need to do to get that information out. So I think we're missing some opportunities as far as some of the deeper dive in research and studies and learning what is it that some of our similar cities and communities are doing in this work. I did also have the question about the human relations director. I know that Ms. Wheeler has served in that capacity, and having had the opportunity to sit on the interview committee for our director of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I speak now. I think that would be a wonderful a role for Dr. Muhammad to flow into because of his experience and his background and experience with that. I think it creates it would be a more cohesive blend for us. And it gives someone a little bit more, having the context to be able to execute these pieces. So definitely wanted that to be a part of a discussion point, or at least something to, as a commissioner, that is expressed in and is written in minutes, that I would love to see that possibility, that be a possibility if Dr. Muhammad is open to that. Any other commissioners in regards to reviewing the Chapter 10, anything that you want to share about roles and responsibilities?
This is Commissioner Stevens. I agree with what Commissioner Barnett and what you said, Chair Sellers. I think that the thing that's most important about this committee is that if we are going to be advocates for people to make complaints when they are struggling, probably in some of their worst moments, then if we don't have any influence over the actual process, it makes me very uncomfortable for me to advocate for a system that statistically chews up Black, Brown, Indigenous people, poor people, people with mental illness, people that aren't citizens, all kinds of different intersections of people's identities. And so, like Commissioner Barnett said, if we don't have any real power, I don't understand how I can advocate for a system that I'm not even influencing. And it makes me very uncomfortable. And on a macro level as well as a micro level, meaning that if I don't have any control over the system, okay, why would I take people's time and pain and put it into funnel it into something that ends up not being helpful at all? Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Stevens. I was going back and looking through some of my notes from my initial meeting with Scott, and at the time, our chair, Commissioner Barnett. And there's a part in here that I talked about in regards to funding. And so this is a question, Scott and Casey, at any point when the city is at that time where they are putting together their budget, is there ever an opportunity for, and I know this commission typically met quarterly. So in regards to those quarterly meetings, was there ever alignment where there was communication sent out to commissioners to provide, to engage them in far as recommendations for line item budgets for programs? I know we utilize HUD money, and HUD, that money being the primary funding for this unit, that seems to guide some of the work that we do. But is our commissions, and specifically this commission, has it ever been engaged, has someone from the city engaged us as far, in line item budgeting or opportunities to have that discussion, to know what we can and cannot ask for, or is it a possibility? I know we had that discussion last month, but is that a practice? Is it one of those things where it's more passive than active, or?
This is Assistant City Manager Casey Toomey. I'd ask Scott to maybe weigh in on recent history. I'm knowledgeable of the city's budget process, but I don't know specifically as it relates to this commission. I will say that as part of the city attorney's office, the city attorney's budget requests every year would provide an opportunity for requests for resources. Scott, I don't know what you might add.
Yeah.
This is Scott Wagner, legal analyst for the city attorney's office. I would probably add to that in the past 12 years since I've been working with the commission, when the commission has identified something that they need funded, staff has either gone out and wrote a grant or reallocated some funds within existing budget to make it happen.
Right.
As Casey pointed out, there is a line item still in our city attorney's office budget devoted to human relations. Right now, it's a very small line item. I think it's under $25,000, and it basically covers a small portion of the cost it takes to investigate human relations complaints. We get a small HUD grant each year. The past 4 to 5 years, it's been averaging also around $25,000 for assistance with enforcement of fair housing related complaints. So those have been the two primary budget sources for the work of this body in the past few years. During the budget process, there hasn't been an interaction directly with the commission, but I would say, as Casey points out, there are the opportunities there if this body, identifies things that's a priority to accomplish. The commission, we could certainly work on that.
Thank you, Scott. And I think you bring up a good point as far as that if there was ever an opportunity or an activity that boards and commissions wanted to do, that city staff would go out to solicit funds, which, to a sense that that's an emboldened duty that commissioners have. And I think that's something good. That's something that's worth noting, that we do have that that capability to do that. But knowing if there were some opportunities on the front end, and I know this is just speaking, in general and hypothetical, and in best case financial situations, to know that if where we would get that money and it come from. And I guess I would like to see from city staff that are liaisons to our board and our commissions. I don't want us to get into a habit of chasing money. So, or say, finding a problem to a solution. But I think as we continue to go through this process with the strategic plan and understanding what capabilities we have as commissioners, to possibly, once we're able to identify some outcomes and activities on how we hope to address these outcomes, then maybe the role of our city liaisons can then help find funding to support those pieces, or at least be more proactive about things like that. Because I know that was a question that I had when I came on board was, as a commissioner, can I do that? Or is it something that is solely your responsibility? Which is kind of why I came up with, how we came to be with the kiosk idea, but I just didn't know. It says in there that is a response, that is a role of a commissioner. But just to know, is that something that we can do, we should be doing, so that thinking about this process and how we can be more inclusive to the bigger plan for the city, I can know that as someone, so that we can look for funding opportunities for us to address some of the concerns we may have. So.
This is Commissioner Bloxham. I appreciate this conversation, but I really want to go back to, as sitting on this commission for so long, I think I'm going to put it in real plain language about my concern and some of the concerns shared with other commissioners. And that is that we have really been given a charge, not just for education outreach, which since I've been on the commission, we've increased a lot. I think my concern is the lack of oversight of this commission and this body, and knowing the history of this body. I know that was a major part of the role as when I even came on. And knowing even HUD is saying that we've had a significant decrease in investigations, number one. So that's your outreach, but also on how the findings of those investigations. And I know that costs money. I think you're hitting on a really good point, is that we have never been given the answer no as far as any outreach or any funding that we need as a commission to do that. Where we have been told no is what our role and responsibility is on the oversight of investigating complaints made. And I agree with Commissioners Barnett and Commissioner Stevens that I have a real hard time continuing to bolster the credibility of that complaint process if I don't have any oversight on it. And I believe that no one is doing this out of pure harm. What I believe is that we used to pay a director of this commission, and because of funding and because it costs money to investigate claims, that has been taken over by the city manager's or the city attorney's office, which makes perfect sense, except the point that they're inundated with a whole bunch of other things. So if you're looking at line item budgets and you're seeing that maybe HUD's kicking in 25 grand a year, that just that in and of itself, knowing line item is so low, it kind of under the water puts less of a responsibility to take complaints all the way through the process. I mean, we're talking since 2016, we haven't had anything except conciliations. And so I think you're hitting at the heart of the matter, is that because that line item is so minimal, that our response is minimal too. And that's no longer appropriate. And so I'm extremely passionate about this, not because I think anyone's done anything intentionally, but if we're just talking about funding, that's probably the number one reason why we've had a significant decline and decrease. And it's not because people don't care. And it's not because people don't do a good job. It's because we're looking at funding as a line item on how we are responding to discrimination and investigations of those discrimination complaints. And what I want to talk about is how we can make that better. And if that means devoting more time to that process, I'm down. But if that means continuing to find more educational opportunities, then I'm out, because we've done that. And I'm tired of having the same conversation over and over again. Either we take responsibility for people that we're outreaching to and oversight of the process, or we don't need to fund any more things, because it's not helping in the long run. Nothing's happening, nothing's increasing. And unless we're saying since 2016, there hasn't been any type of discrimination that could go through a whole process, then I'm just so passionate about it, because it's something that this commission was set up to do, is that oversight piece, which has been taken away. And until we get that back and figure out ways to have oversight, I think it's not in our best interest to talk about throwing more money at a problem that we're not focusing on the real heat of the matter. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on that.
Thank you, Commissioner Bloxham. And I want to say, I know that this process has been an impassioned issue, or a concern. I shouldn't say issue, a concern with the commission and many of the commissioners. And so I know this has also been a very long, ugly process. And I think what, like you said, we've uncovered tonight is that small line item, but also its correlation to some of the numbers that we see. And I don't know, it could be a direct or indirect correlation. And, we can say that by increasing that line item, that it could change some of the response and efforts and duties of those. I don't know. It could be that because of that line item, that there's been a change in protocol. And because of that change in protocol and how it affected how the commission's involvement was in that, to reflect that lower line item, I don't know. That it is a reflection of our low numbers. but I would like to see, and I don't know if it would take a subcommittee, and I would like to propose that for us to really look at, to do an actual study on this and to look at, is this line item affecting how we're able to efficiently handle cases, and because of that change, and to combine that with the change in how the ordinance was interpreted, and that responsibility, because and if that has had an effect as well. I know that we anticipated having Ms. Wheeler speak at our December meeting, and she wasn't able to because of illness, but I still feel like that's kind of the big hollow space that's present in the room now, that because we don't know, because it was something that Ms. Wheeler interpreted that to be. And I think we're not going to get too much resolution on this until we have that discussion with her. But I would like to see those who share that same passion and knowledge and perspective, that history of this process, such as Commissioner Stevens, Commissioner Barnett, as well as Commissioner Bluxham, and even Commissioner Falls. Do we feel like something like this rises to the need for a subcommittee to really look at this and examine this and come back with the commission on what this looks like moving forward? And I just want to put that in everyone's mind. We're going to go through the strategic plan, and I don't want us to get ahead of that, because this could be something that is part of this discussion. But I at least want us to look at, how do we bring resolution to this? Because like Commissioner Bluxham said, you don't want to throw more money at something if we're not getting to the root cause. But this commission is, but again, this commission is bigger, and I don't want us to lose track that we have some opportunities here to expand our reach and our role to the community and the service that we represent on behalf of the city. So I don't want to close. I don't want to close out the discussion, but I will call for any final comments in regards to this. Because I would like for us to get to the overview of the strategic plan.
This is Commissioner Stevens. I just want to say one final thing. I think that in the era of, or in the moment that we're in historically, as well as the way that social media has helped us to see different parts of the realities that we don't experience, the increase in xenophobia, the increase in the coverage of state-sanctioned killings, in the presence of anti-immigrant rhetoric, ableism, and things like that. What it shows is that when things work, people access and utilize it. And the fact that they are not utilizing it means that the city is the one that oversees this. And as a result, it's power protecting power. And so it'd be beneficial for the people that are raising these complaints, these very valid and obviously real complaints, such as, since 2016, we had a bunch of anti-Semitic things that happened in Lawrence as well. And so the fact is, it's not that these things haven't been existing and they just started existing. It's that they've existed this whole time, and people don't feel like they have a voice, and they don't feel supported. And the city of Lawrence is no different than any other city in the country or the world, in that power protects power. And so if we're talking as a voice for the people, then we have to be able to have a body that sees things and makes recommendations. Otherwise, I can't endorse. I can't. That's unethical, and it doesn't make any sense. And so if we don't get that power back, I'm not just going to be a face of diversity and inclusion, because we're doing neither. We're just taking up space on Monday evenings. And I don't want to do that anymore, because I could do other things, and we all could do other things. It would be interesting to know how much money it costs to do these investigations. but that cannot be the determining factor of whether we actually do things or whether we have power. That's garbage, honestly. And I'm not interested in being a part of a body that has fake power. This is like the Police Oversight Commission, like not making real recommendations that hold any water. It's time for us to kind of do stuff or not do stuff. But if we keep talking about this stuff, then what we're doing is we're alienating the members of the community and reinforcing the fact that we don't care enough to move things. And that is, again, unethical and pretty disrespectful to the people that are surviving through realities that we might not experience or understand. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Stevens. I would firmly say that your comments, I echo the sentiments of your comments and truly believe that we are in a, not necessarily a crisis moment, but we are in a moment where we can't sit around and wait anymore. And it's not necessarily about asking for permission, but doing the work and figuring out and emboldening our city to support us in this work. That leads to a great segue into our discussion about the strategic plan. I didn't know, Casey, did you want to do a brief introduction on this before we kind of dive into it?
Sure. Again, Casey Toomey, Assistant City Manager. And Ferris and I are going to kind of walk through this part of our discussion. We thought we would show the video that we had sent out. I don't know if everyone got a chance to see it or not, but we thought it might be good to go ahead and show so that if we have new members that they haven't maybe had a chance to view it, or if folks are viewing the meeting in the public or on the recording, then it would be there. Is that agreeable? I saw maybe one head shake, but I wasn't sure if it was because it was a good idea or because they had already watched it.
You know, Casey, this is Commissioner Sellers. It's about 3 minutes long. So I think for the sake of the community as well as the commissioners, a quick refresher would not be horrible.
Okay. Great, thank you. Casey Toomey, Assistant City Manager. Just a quick introduction. We've been working on the strategic plan since really late 2019. We had a really strong kickoff in the early part of 2020 and had just completed kind of our public engagement effort when the pandemic shut everything down. So we were on a bit of a high, having completed public engagement, hearing from over 3,000 people in the community. Then we had kind of a time where we were suspended, but then we were able to get back together in the summer and do some additional work. And the video that you're about to watch kind of summarizes that effort. And then we'll talk a little bit more in detail about each one of the outcomes and commitments. And then we can also talk a little bit more about the work that's still left to do on the strategic plan. If you take nothing else away from this conversation, know that this is just an update. This is an ongoing plan. We have the commission's adopted the outcomes and the commitments, but there is still work being done by staff and other stakeholders in the community to try to put additional strategies together and key performance indicators related to the plan. So I'll go ahead and hit play. And one last comment would be that this was really a video aimed at our city staff, but as members of boards and commissions, you have a very similar role as trying to help us achieve these outcomes. So I think it's still valid. So I'm going to hit play here. And before I do that, Kurt, do I need to share this screen before I do that?
I'm putting it on TV. It just depends on how they're watching it. It's a tricky question. We got a late start. I think you should just roll with it and I can fix it later. It's only 3 minutes.
Okay, here we go.
All right.
Everybody here?
Casey, this is Commissioner Sellers. No, we have no audio.
Is that any better?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Kurt, any suggestions? Can you hear the video is the question. That was the comment.
No, we couldn't hear the video. We did in one of the squares see the video from YouTube, but there was no audio.
Okay, hold on. Let me consult our technical assistants, Kurt.
Let's give it one more shot.
Should I try the sharing the screen? Would that make a difference?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay, so I want to.
No.
Any better? Kurt, what?
I don't hear him either now.
Hey, Casey, if we can't get audio, I think it'll be okay if we don't have it.
Okay.
And I know we are running a little off schedule, so I want to be protective of everyone's time.
Understood. Okay, we'll just pick back up and jump to the part where I say our next steps are the City Commission did adopt our outcome and commitment statements that Ferris is going to go over here with you in just a few minutes. What's left to do is development of those key performance indicators. So the measures of how we know that we're achieving these outcomes or how we know that we are doing our work pursuant to the commitments that we've outlined, and strategies. So what strategies, what action items can we take as an organization to achieve those key performance indicators so that we are making progress towards those outcomes? So Ferris, I will turn it over to you to walk us through our strategic plan outcomes and commitments.
Thank you, Casey. This is Ferris Muhammad, Director of Equity and Inclusion for the city. And I'm going to make an attempt here to share my screen as I walk through the outcome and commitment areas for the strategic plan. So 1 second here as I try to navigate this. I think I got it. Okay, are you all able to see the screen here for the strategic planning framework?
Yes, we can, Dr. Muhammad.
Okay, and again, in the interest of time, I'll try to do like a very high level overview. But as far as like Assistant City Manager Casey kind of alluded to, as far as there's been a work in progress and we're still within the progress of bringing this to completion. The Council City Commission have adopted this as far as the outcome and the commitment areas. So currently, we have the vision and the mission and the values of the city already. And so the commitments here, as was spoken to by the city manager, Craig, as far as the purpose of the commitments and the purpose of the outcomes. And he kind of spoke to it in regards to the commitments being more so the how we go about doing business and the outcomes being sort of the what, as far as the long-term goals that we're trying to accomplish. And so here we have these things broken out into these 6 categories as far as the different commitments. And each one of these commitment areas have a commitment team that's dedicated to ensuring and developing strategies and key performance indicators to find ways that we can track and measure to make sure all the different outcome areas are tracking along in an efficient way. And so I'm going to kind of do this in a reverse. I'm going to go to our outcomes area first, and then I'm going to scroll back up to the commitment areas. So scrolling down here, and hopefully this shows up well, we have 5 areas, and the outcomes are defined and described as to realize our vision for Lawrence. We endeavor to achieve these important strategic outcomes together. And so we have as 1, unmistakable identity, and I'm not going to read the descriptions for all of them. But then 2, we have a strong and welcoming neighborhood. So how can the city as an outcome ensure that the city overall, the city of Lawrence is a strong and welcoming or have strong and welcoming neighborhoods? And then the 3rd one is safe and secure. And so looking at ways in which citizens make sure they feel like they are safe and secure and have access to trusted public community-based safety resources. And then for the 4th one here, prosperity and economic security as far as an outcome. And then the last one, infrastructure, asset management, and connectivity. So these are the 5 major overall outcome areas. And in order to achieve these sort of goals, we have these 6 commitments that was spoken to earlier, as I'm going to scroll back up. And the overall thing that the city is working on right now is the integration of these commitment and outcome areas to make sure that each one of those outcomes, we find crafty ways to implement these, or we're committed to ensuring that the different outcome groups are keeping these 6 areas right here in mind as they continuously track along for the long term. And so one of the commitments is community engagement. So making sure that community is continuously engaged, and that includes, of course, Human Relations Commission and all the other boards and commissions. So as kind of spoken to earlier amongst this commission, how do we make sure that we have an understanding of the inner workings of local government, kind of the city's overall goals, and how this commission and other commissions can not only work in tandem with the city as an organization, but continuously find ways to reimagine and bring innovative approaches to making sure we're doing things in a more efficient and effective way, and even better way as far as moving forward. And so one of the second commitments is the efficient and effective processes. And then third is the equity and inclusion. And I happen to be the chairperson for this commitment team right here. And so we have a whole team of about 14 people from different departments throughout the city, kind of making sure that the city as an overall organization is trying to infuse equity in every element and every part of business that we do, which includes delivery of equitable services, which I think this commission, as the Human Relations Commission, has a very critical role in ensuring that the city is infusing equity in everything that we do, especially the delivery of services. And so as a fourth commitment area, we have sound fiscal stewardship. And again, this commission tonight has spoken a lot about kind of grant dollars and securing funding and what those kinds of things look like. So how are we using funding and going about not only allocating funding, but securing the funding. And then for the fifth one here, engaged and empowered teams. And then sixth is the environmental sustainability. So I'm going to get ready to kind of pause it right there. And I want to make sure that individuals tonight have time to ask questions related to the different commitment and outcome teams and areas, and the understanding of it overall, since we were not able to kind of queue up the video in an effective way with the audio coming through. That's a very high level, fast kind of overview of the strategic planning framework. So I'll pause right there and entertain any questions that this commission may have.
Thank you, Dr. Mohammed. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Dr. Mohammed, Casey, as in regards to the strategic plan and the 11 guide points, or at least the 5 strategic outcomes and the 6 commitments? All right, hearing none, I wanted us to, at least in the interest of time, I do feel like I want us to get started on this. I don't feel like, because this is such a heavy lift, I don't know how far we will get into this. And I do believe I would like for the commission to really have some dedicated time to look at this within during our time and afterwards. So, but I would like for us to at least have some discussion in regards to the outcomes and commitments, to talk out what are some strategies and activities that we could do as a commission to be a part of this strategic plan. So I don't know, Casey, were you able to share the document that?
This is Casey Toomey, Assistant City Manager. I'm certainly going to try.
Okay.
Let me try opening it in a new window first.
So while Casey's working on that, I live in a world of crosswalks and trying to figure out different relationships with different resources and entities. And so I took essentially the document that Dr. Mohammed shared with us and rearranged it in a way that we could have some discussion. There we go. And so essentially what I did was, All right. Thanks, Casey. What I wanted to do is at least kind of create a cross so that we can examine each of the commitments as it relates to each outcome. And again, I think tonight we have had some hearty discussion, and I know that we're not going to be able to touch on every piece of this. And so homework of the commissioners will be to take a look at this document, and I'll be more than happy to have Casey share it with everyone. But just to give us a document that we can use to start jotting down ideas of what are some activities and strategies that we could use to infuse the Human Relations Commission into the strategic plan. And I wanted to use the example that we've talked about mostly tonight in regards to efficient and effective processes. When I first saw this document and I saw that particular commitment, it did make me think of the conversations that our commission has had as far as the role of the hearings and cases. And so that's something that Commissioner Bluxham has drilled into my head. I don't have dreams or nightmares about it, but I do think about it. And it did come to my mind when I saw this document. But tapping that as a commitment to efficient and effective processes, thinking about it from the context of the work we do and being in and the role of the commission being involved in the review of complaints and cases. I'd like for us to look at those 5 outcomes and try and just as an exercise tonight, use that as an example to talk through what those strategies and activities could look like. So as far as efficient and effective processes in regards to the overview of this commission, that what does that look like in masking immiscible identities, strong, welcoming neighborhoods, safe and secure. So taking those each one of those individual pieces and tacking it to that. Let's try to look at at least talk out. We don't have to have a solid strategy, but let's at least talk out what that could look like.
This is Commissioner Bluxham. I want to real quickly just give an overview of an example that this commission has used, starting with Commissioner Barnett coming on to this commission. One thing that she requested right off the bat from the city attorney's office was the complaints and what they were. And out of that, it was identified that we were talking about complaints about service animals. And so we had, she really spearheaded this. It was specific to the complaints that we were seeing. So when we're talking about all this stuff, I think we need to go back to the issue. And I don't know how to make it an action item, and I don't know how to make it happen anymore, but we really need to be looking at those complaints to have us guide how we're going to look at those. Does that make sense? So if we know that in the last 6 months, there's been 27 complaints about, let's just say, discrimination, what those looked like, and then going off that to determine next steps of this commission. Since we've been taken out of that loop, it's difficult to identify those activities. It's like doing it blind. So I just wanted to give an example of what we have done in the past when we were faced with how do we get our business out to the community. We partnered with the school system, and because children are amazing, ways to effectively spread our word and our message. And we did that for a couple of years. So I'm just going back to being able to identify those complaints, what we have coming in? What are people saying? What do they need? And I know it's reactive, and I'm not usually a reactive person, but I just want to put it back, infuse that back to this body that we usually really did look at those complaints, and we nailed them down and decided intentionally where we were going to put our efforts. So I just wanted to share that example of past and how we'd done that before.
Thank you, Commissioner Bluxham. So going with that, if that's something we did in the past and we're not doing it now, how would you align that on the strategic plan? How would you crosswalk that? What does that look like? Is that community engagement and safe and secure? Is that infrastructure, asset connectivity with efficient and effective processes? Taking what you just said and working and working back, where do you make that connection on this? Or where would you make the connection? So for an example, I'm looking at, we talked about the line item in regards to the city attorney's fund and whether or not that's adequate enough money, or no, the question we had was in regards to the cost of an investigation. And does that cost align with efficiency in work and us seeing cases? And does that have a direct or indirect influence on that? So as far as looking at the line item and examining adequate funding, is that a part of infrastructure, asset management, and connectivity aligned with sound fiscal structure? Could we put that there just to kind of use that and to talk about that later? Or do you see that connection there? Is it more about sound fiscal stewardship and prosperity and economic security? You see what I'm trying to do here? So where, if we wanted to look at that charge and be able to ensure that we have adequate funding, line item funding for the city attorney to efficiently and effectively review cases, where does that fit? Where do you see that fitting? Could it fit somewhere?
This is Commissioner Barnett. I mean, I think the natural place for something like the example that Commissioner Bluxham, thank you so much, you're very kind, gave was certainly under asset management and connectivity. I think that ensuring that the public has access to educational opportunities and that this information that we have as a body is being distributed to our community to make it better, to reduce discrimination, which furthers our purpose, certainly falls under that last infrastructure outcome. And then I think, the commitment meets a lot of different, on your crosswalk, meets a lot of different of those methods of commitment, including community engagement, equity and inclusion, and sound fiscal stewardship. I know that we certainly made the most out of our money there when we had that CLE. So I think that's a good example. And thank you, Chairwoman Sellers, for kind of asking us to put that together here. There are so many examples that I think that we can go off of if we take those 5 outcomes and try and workshop them with all of the, sorry, I keep forgetting, commitments that are there. So this is a beautiful document. It is an excellent guiding document, and I'm excited to look at it maybe for the next meeting and get to work. So I think you've laid some really great groundwork here.
Thank you, Commissioner Barnett. And again, I will have Casey send this out because I do feel like I would like to see input from all the commissioners on this in regards to this document and the work that we can do. I know I know several had mentioned that they were busy and may not have had enough time to dedicate to review this. And so I did at least want us to have some time to look over it and to at least dialogue and talk out how to work through this, or at least give us one way to look at this document and how we can, again, infuse some strategies that are where our commissioners and where our work that we do as commissioners can be involved in this. Does anyone have any questions to Dr. Muhammad about the strategic plan and some of the work that he's been doing on this?
I have a question for Dr. Muhammad. Is there like a end goal? Is this like for just 2021? Is there a timeline that you envision this to be in effect with our input? Commissioner Haswood.
This is Ferris Muhammad, Director of Equity and Inclusion for the city. Thanks for the question, Commissioner Haswood. If I understand your question correctly, if you're asking about the strategic plan and how long is it designed to be, Casey, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the strategic plan is designed for initially a 5-year plan. And so I think for this, if that's correct, Casey?
This is Casey Toomey, Assistant City Manager, 3 to 5 years.
3 to 5 years. Okay.
This is Casey Toomey again. I might just add that I think to add on to Dr. Muhammad, the intention of us sharing this with you all, though, I think you're certainly able to look at 3 to 5 year goals as well. But I think as we move into kind of our conversation about, do you want to continue to meet monthly? Do you want to continue to meet quarterly? One of the goals of sharing this was for you all to help organize the amount of work that's reasonable for you all to be able to accomplish in this year. So, so while the strategic plan is a 3 to 5 year timeframe, I think it would also be helpful, or at least I would suggest that you all think about some 1 year long goals if you have some. As I've heard you all have conversations about feeling like we don't take action, that we do a lot of talking. That might be something that would be helpful to staff, is if you could give us some concrete goals for 2021 that you all would like to accomplish, and where you see those goals fitting in the strategic plan. So to further that conversation on Commissioner Sellers' example, or on this crosswalk provided by Chair Sellers, does infrastructure, asset management, and connectivity, when you read that description there, is that the best place for you all to be doing your work? Don't think about it as a crosswalk where you have to have a bingo card and have every, it's not a blackout bingo card where every square has to be to be selected. If there are certain outcomes where your work makes sense, do that. If there are certain ones where it doesn't make sense, that's okay too. So I think it was supposed to be a guiding tool for you all as you think about those things that you see as your roles and responsibilities under that Chapter 10. If it's oversight of this process, where does that fit? If it's education and outreach, where does that fit? To me, that's a natural alignment with our community engagement commitment, that outreach and education effort. So that's just an example. So I think just from staff's perspective, that was our goal in sharing this tool. And thanks to all of you for some good discussion and some homework that it sounds like you all are going to do between now and our next time together.
Thank you, Commissioner Haswood and Casey, for those questions and comments. And again, I think you shared that quite well. This is not a bingo card, and I didn't want anyone to think that. So if commissioners on the call thought that was not the intent. The idea was to at least help to spark some thinking and dialogue with us, in hopes that we could take this back and do that work. Because I know one of the things that I've struggled with a bit on this commission is getting the feedback from other commissioners on just end goal desires for the group. I feel like we've done a great job of identifying concerns that we have and things that we don't want to see. But I would like to hear more from commissioners as far as how can we be more involved? And are we really meeting the needs in this capacity as commissioners for the citizens of this city? And if we're not, what do we need to do to accomplish that? And it seems to me that several of us know that there's more that we could be doing and desire to do more. And we just need to walk through that process of what that looks like or what that could look like. And that may be seen as being vulnerable. I don't know. I can only speak for myself and I can't speak for everyone else, but I would like to, as a call to action, charge the commissioners tonight to do your due diligence and review the document. Come with some questions, discussion points, opportunities, and strategies for how we can move the work that we should be doing, could be doing within that 1 to 5 years. Because I know we all want to do something. We all know that we have the capability to do something. You wouldn't have applied to be on this commission if that wasn't the case. So it's time for us to really show up for the city and show up for the people, most importantly for the people of this community. And if there's some opportunities here, or if there's some things that we're not addressing and we need to look at that, then let's be honest and open with each other about that. So don't want to belabor a point, but again, we all have homework to do. And that leads us into our next agenda item, number 5, in regards to our calendar and meeting frequency. In the agenda, we do have the advisory board's meeting calendar. As you do remember, at our last meeting in December, we did not set our meeting dates for 2021. This meeting in January is considered a special meeting. Latter part of 2020, the commission did decide to meet on a monthly basis in regards to some of the call to action that was coming from the city commissioners. Currently, we do have monthly dates on the calendar. Per ordinance, we at minimum are supposed to meet quarterly and can call meetings, special meetings as necessary, deemed as necessary. So based from what I could gather from communication with Commissioner Barnett, who served as chair, is that typically the quarterly meetings were February, June.
Commissioner Sellers,
Yes.
this is Casey Toomey. Sorry to interrupt. Casey Toomey, Assistant City Manager. The bylaws for the Human Relations Commission outline your meeting dates. It says under our Article 4, Section 1, that the commission shall meet the 3rd Thursday of February, May, August, and November at a time designated by the commission unless otherwise designated by the commission. So it calls out those specific months and provides the 3rd Thursday. So the question is, does the 3rd Thursday in February, May, August, and November work? If not, then we need the body to take an official action to designate when the official meeting when the official meetings will occur.
Okay. So commissioners, hearing that we've currently been meeting on Mondays, but per the bylaws, it's the third Thursdays quarterly. So looking at calendars, are we, for those 4 months of February, May, August, and November, do we feel comfortable moving forward and changing from Monday to Thursday? All right, so hearing no objections, we're going to maintain our third Thursday.
I'm sorry, Chair Sellers, this is Casey Toomey again. The problem with that is that appears on this calendar that this room is already used on the third Thursday at 6 p.m. So as long as we're in COVID time, we are broadcasting our meetings, which needs this room to be used. So if we want to meet on the third Thursday, 6 p.m. Is not a workable time. We can designate a different time on Thursday, or we can designate an entire different day and time.
Entire different day. So
Sorry, it's so confusing. So which is, I guess a suggestion would be, which is easier to determine, the time of day or the day of the week? If you all are desirous of having your meetings in the evening, that might be a good starting point, is if that's the time frame that works the best for the members.
Well, this is Commissioner Sellers. I know that the time and days have fluctuated within the last 6 months. So I'd like to hear from some of the other commissioners as far as date and time, or day and time.
This is Commissioner Sheldon Sherman. I don't have a strong preference on this one way or the other, but if we are meeting monthly, which it sounds like perhaps we are, it might make sense to keep the same day every day of the week, every month, just so it's easy for all of us to remember and kind of block off our time. If we always, I think it might be a bit odd if we did the second Monday on off months and the third.
No, we would never do that.
Okay, so we would, okay, just making sure.
No.
Okay.
I track legislation, so that would not be good for.
Okay, that's my 2 cents. I prefer evenings. That's my other 2 cents.
Right. And that's mostly what I want to hear from commissioners. Are we thinking evening time? I need nods. Yes, no, maybe. So evening being after 5. All right, so that means Thursday is out for us. So then we need to look at other days. Are there any days, before we go down that rabbit hole, that does not work for anyone? So our Monday's totally out for people. Our Friday's totally out. Our Wednesday's totally out.
Chair Sellers, this is Casey Toomey. This room is not available on Tuesdays, the first, second, or third Tuesday of the month due to city commission meetings.
So are we back to looking at Mondays again? This is Commissioner Sellers. Casey?
Or Wednesdays.
So Wednesdays after 5.
The weekend is an option as well. I don't know how you all feel about that, but I wanted to put that out there.
Well, we'll put the weekend out there because I'll probably hear from commissioners that way. So commissioners, are we going to have a meeting on the second Saturday of the month at 9 o'clock?
Commissioner Stevens here. Nope.
Okay, hey, I got one. And I saw a couple of head nods either. So looking at Wednesday, the third Wednesday, Casey.
Planning Commission.
Planning Commission.
It's not on this calendar, Kurt.
It's Monday and some Wednesdays.
Yeah,
Kurt,
Casey, this is Scott Wagner. Kurt's right. Planning Commission meets occasionally on Wednesday evenings. So I don't know if Bobby had blocked the room for certain Mondays for us. Maybe you can advise on that.
So where do we stand now with where we are in this time?
So the issue, this is Casey Toomey, Assistant City Manager. Sorry, I have to say that every time.
Okay.
The issue with Monday night, the second Monday, is that we back up to the Public Transit Committee meeting. So that's why we've started late the last 2 times, because they have not finished their meeting. So if we want to keep it on Monday, then it would need to be a start time no earlier than 6 p.m.
Okay.
And yes, Scott, to answer your question, this is Casey Toomey again, the Mondays are blocked off on the calendar. every month already for 2021. So if we could move the time to 6 p.m., that would be the easiest way to wrap this up.
Okay. So currently, as it stands, at minimum per the bylaws, we would need to change, we would be meeting the second Monday at 6 p.m. in February, May, August, and November. But you said that we have that time is currently open for the entire calendar for 2021.
This is Casey Toomey, correct?
Right. So I would like to propose to the commission that we reserve the time of the second Monday at 6 p.m. for the remaining 2021 year, knowing that we will have our quarterly meetings per the bylaws in February, May, August, and November. And if need be, we need to meet for special meetings, we have those dates available and afforded to us. Do I have any discussion on the matter? So Casey, do I need a motion to change the day and time, or is that just agreed upon?
This is Casey Toomey, staff liaison. I would suggest a motion establishing your regular meeting day and time.
Okay. So I would need a motion that our meetings will be moved, establishing our meetings to be the second Monday of the month at 6 p.m. And I just gave you your motion. So if I can get a motion from one of the commissioners. Commissioner Falls, would you be willing to make the motion for us for the meeting change?
On Mondays at 6 o'clock.
Second Monday at 6 p.m. Nope, did I lose Commissioner Falls?
This is Commissioner Bloxham. I move to change the meeting date from the second Monday from Thursday to the second Monday. Am I moving monthly or are we doing quarterly still?
Monthly.
This is Commissioner Bloxham. I move that we change our meetings to reflect the second Monday, starting at 6 p.m. monthly.
Thank you, Commissioner Bloxham. Can I get a second?
This is Commissioner Stevens, I second.
Thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's make sure there was 5 of us, so at least we have a vote. It's been properly moved and seconded to move our meeting from the third Thursday to the second Monday, 6 p.m. monthly. Doing a roll call vote. Commissioner Haswood.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Falls. Commissioner Bloxham.
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett had to step away. Commissioner Sheldon Sherman.
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens.
Aye.
And Commissioner Sellers is an aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Motion is carries with a vote of 6-0. All right.
Thank you very much. I know that's challenging, so I appreciate you working through it.
It's okay. You learn by working through it. All right. Agenda point 6, next steps, goals for 2021.
Chair Sellers, this is Casey Toomey, Assistant City Manager. I would suggest, in addition to the homework that you all have discussed, that this item be tabled too, and we can come back after folks have had time to think about where they see things fitting with the strategic plan framework, and we can have this as our first agenda item for our February meeting.
Okay. Do we need and we would need a motion to table this to our next month's meeting?
Casey Toomey, no.
Okay, wonderful. All right. We don't have any commission items, but I do know we have members of the community here with us today for public comment. Is there anyone online that would wish to give public comments at this time?
Good evening. Hi, my name is Kay Emerson. Lawrence citizen since 2004. I come to you this evening as a human service professional to provide support, comments in response to the past 5 commission meetings and tonight agenda items 3 and 4. I just want to take a few moments to thank you for your civic service to our community and our citizens. So hello. Now, when it comes to agenda item 3, roles and responsibilities of the commission, I took some time to review a total of 5 human relations commissions and the surrounding communities. The initial review revealed that the board responsibilities or the commission responsibilities kind of ranged within its focus. In all commissions that I had to review, there was a component participating in supporting the human relations director when reviewing discrimination cases as it relates to HUD. However, there appeared to be a difference on when they would support that process. Some were prior to probable cause, some were after the probable cause. And there were some commissions who they focused more so on just that outreach piece, the education programming. So I did want to provide that input. The 5 communities that I had looked into was Kansas City, metro area, Wyandotte, Hutchinson, Pittsburgh, and Wichita. So just to give you a little bit of background, and Topeka, of course, Topeka. I try to find some comparable human relations commissions with similar demographics, but nonetheless, that's besides the point. I also wanted to agree with Commissioner Sellers if Dr. Muhammad would be open to the position of the Human Relations Commissions Director. I believe it would be a great opportunity as it relates to the capacity to support the work that the Human Relations Commission is been asked to do and charged to do. But moving forward, as I kind of come to more of a conclusion, I want to encourage the commission to consider the following questions. How does the commission want to endeavor in eliminating discrimination this year? How does the commission want to continue to study discrimination? And are there any policies, procedures, or educational programs that the commission would like to review this year and make recommendations to the city governing board? And those 3 questions are derived from what you'll find in the powers and responsibilities in Ordinance 10, or Chapter 10. So, as I examine and review the commission is at a stage of like revitalization and realignment of the needs of Lawrence. And as you guys had talked about, the work is leading itself to meet more frequently than quarterly. So I definitely agree with meeting right now on a monthly basis, not weekly, right? Who has time for weekly, right? But noticing that we are coming close to Martin Luther King Day, I want to leave you with this last statement. As my suffering mounted, I soon realized that there was 2 ways in which I would respond to my situation. Either to react with bitterness or seek to transform the suffering into a creative force, I decided to follow the latter course. So I want to encourage commissioners. I know that this has been a very long ride, as some of you have really expressed eloquently, but you're in a moment in where you can seek transformation and use your creative force as a group to do what needs to be done. And with that, good night and thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Emerson, for those words. I really do appreciate that. I do appreciate you taking time to examine the work that this commission has done and to provide some citizen insight to it, as well as a charge for us to reflect on our own work and what we could do during this time as we take the work and the lessons that we've learned from these past few months and use that to endeavor ourselves to reimagine what we could do. So thank you for that. Are there any other citizens present that would like to have public comment? Mr. Flowers, you now have the floor.
Hi, this is Chris Flowers. I'm not sure if this is the right place for this issue. I hadn't prepared to come here, but I saw it. I was watching YouTube and it popped up as a recommendation, so I thought I'd tune in. But there's a problem. I went to City Commission about a couple of years ago. It's the speed bumps on Mass Street leading into Haskell University. Basically, I've read before from a couple different articles that speed bumps actually can cause more deaths than lives they save because they delay emergency response times. And basically, the speed bumps on Mass Street, south of 23rd, when you go into Haskell, they're really big speed bumps. Like, they are probably the biggest speed bumps in town. And I think they're over the height of what's recommended for a safe speed bump. And my problem is, I don't think that the main problem is that Mass Street is the road that leads into Haskell, and to get to Row Cloud and Blaylock, you have to use that street basically. And also, I want to say Winona and Pocahontas, you could get to it from Barker, but like the emergency, like they're going to be coming most likely down Mass. So you have probably hundreds of students whose, if they're having an emergency, the emergency response times they're definitely going to be affected by those speed bumps. And I don't think any of those Haskell students were, like, I don't think the city asked for their input about those speed bumps. I think that's kind of unfair. I think it's unfair that you have probably middle-class white families, and they're the ones asking for the speed bumps, and they're the ones controlling that they got the speed bump. And there's probably 5 times as many Haskell students as those few houses there. And I don't think that's right that those speed bumps are there, because it's more likely that that negative consequence is going to happen to someone having an emergency at Haskell than those speed bumps are of saving anyone. And I've choked and had to have the Heimlich maneuver before, and every second counts. So, I mean, maybe it's something to go to the transportation about, but it just seems to me that you have a large group of natives whose, I mean, their lives are being jeopardized a little bit if we're going to have slower emergency response times for them to save the kids of the probably the middle class white people living on the street. So if you guys could at least look into it at all, I don't know. If not, I'll go to the transportation, see if they can do anything. I can try City Commission again, but I'm just wondering if this is anything you guys can look at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Flowers. I do appreciate you bringing that concern to us. In regards to which body of individuals that this could be brought to, I think that's something that I would need to take under counsel. So I don't have an answer for you. But I think there are additional avenues that you could share this information with and other boards as well. But at least you are doing your due diligence and engaging, or at least attempting to find intersection and engage those commissions that you feel that this point makes is a point of concern. So
Chair Sellers, this is Casey Toomey, staff liaison. I'd be happy to get Mr. Flowers in touch with our traffic safety folks, and hopefully they can hear his inquiry and help him figure out the answer.
Wonderful. All right. Well, I don't see any other agenda items for today. Are there any questions or comments before we adjourn and close out for the evening? All right, hearing none, I know that we have taken a little bit extra time out of your evening today, and I do appreciate that for everyone who logged in. So thank you again, commissioners. Again, we'll have some homework items that we'll share with you via email. But if that is all, we will be adjourned at 8 p.m. Thank you again. Have a good night.
Thank you.